You know crucifixion? Well, I thought I'd start this video at the end of both Elden Ring and your life. Because today we're uncovering the worst ways to die in Elden Ring. Did you know the Elden Beast can just outright crucify you? Well, now you do. And to make it even worse, it's not any normal crucifixion. Because instead of piercing your hands and feet, it pierces everywhere. Whenever you're in a grab attack, there's always this point where you're crossing your fingers and waiting with bated breath to see if you survive. But with the Elden Beast grab, it's so over. In fact, I would make the argument that it's never been so over, because I don't think there's enough vigor in the entire game to even dream of surviving this attack. I actually can't believe how overkill this is. 1 or 2 light beams apparently wasn't enough, because he had to pierce every inch of your skin. But the Elden Beast isn't done yet. No, because he also explodes you. That's a little overkill, buddy. We were already on the verge of death after like the second bolt. That explosion was not necessary. That was purely for the love of the game. This actually has to be one of the most brutal deaths in the entire game. Good thing most of us won't experience it, because the Elden Beast is too busy running away the whole fight. But that isn't even the worst death. It gets so much more brutal, tilting, and violent. Have you ever been hurt by someone you were supposed to trust? Been lied to and backstabbed? If you played Elden Ring, I know you have. Because being tricked into your death by messages has to be one of the worst ways to die. Messages are left by a kind stranger, helping you find hidden items and warning you of enemies. But like any community, there's bad actors. And in Elden Ring, most of the time those bad actors want to see you throw yourself off a cliff. Whenever you approach any ledge, you'll no doubt find a message that says something like, hidden item, hidden path ahead, or when they're feeling confident, they'll drop the try jumping. No one would ever fall for these if they were always troll messages. But FromSoft is known for making invisible paths off the edge of cliffs. So these messages aren't always wrong. And that leads to this nagging feeling whenever you approach one of these ledges that makes you question whether your caution is necessary or not. Then when you decide to listen to the message and take the leap, you're left with a feeling of complete stupidity and disappointment, because you just experienced one of the worst ways to die in Elden Ring. But the players aren't the only one luring you to your death, because the developers themselves, FromSoft, partake in a little trolling too. Opening the trap Astel Dragon Lake chest and getting teleported all the way to Caelid has to be one of the absolute worst ways to die. You're going around getting all these early game goodies, and then you find a chest. You think it'll hold another great weapon or talisman, but no. It throws you in an endgame area filled with crazy annoying enemies. You don't have the gear or levels to handle anyone here, and anyone that has been here knows that even if you did, these worm things are so annoying that you're probably gonna die like a dog anyways. You can try to run away from them, but they have this ranged attack that's so annoying that you're never gonna make it out of. And there are so many of them that you can't sneak out. You could fast travel back to spawn, but FromSoft made it so that this is one of the very few times fast traveling is disabled. That's when you realize you're in an Iron Maiden, and the spikes are closing in on you. Then you eventually die by these silkworms, and they do the gritty on your corpse. Or you escape with a sliver of your health. Either way, you're scarred forever, and you think twice before opening a chest. As a corpse currently being grittied on by silkworms, I can definitely say this is a terrible way to die. I'm never opening a chest again. But chests aren't the only thing that brutally murders you, even though it seems harmless. Have you guys ever been killed by a snail before? We've talked about brutality and being traumatized. This actually makes me uncomfortable to watch. I'm sure you're wondering, the snail? How could they be one of the worst deaths in Elden Ring? And I can understand why you would think that. I bet most people haven't even been killed by the snail. I mean, you have to go out of your way to do that. So I'm gonna let it speak for itself. I'm gonna say what's going on as I'm showing it, just in case it has to be heavily censored. The snail jumps on you, and he plunges his head right into your face, and brutalizes it, until he lets you go and you fall to your death. The snail's head is pretty big, so I think we can clearly say that he isn't going through your mouth. He was making another entrance entirely. I was so shocked when finding this. I mean, this is insane. There's something deeply terrifying about things happening to your face, whether it's getting ripped off or melted off, and this triggers that fear. Have any of you guys had this death happen to you? Because it's insane I don't hear this talked about more often. Like, what the snail doing in my face? But yeah, please erase that from my mind, because that's easily top 3 worst deaths in Elden Ring. Now that you're permanently traumatized, let's get you pissed off too. Because our next death is one that every single one of us has experienced without exception. A vice we're all guilty of. We've all gotten greedy when the boss is close to being defeated, and died while getting too aggressive for that last hit. I already know there's a collective groan from everyone watching this video. It's the most human experience in the world. When you're going at a boss for hours at a time, and you finally melt his health bar down to the last few hits. Of course you're gonna be jumping out of your seat to finish him off. But Elden Ring is a game that rewards patience. So when you carelessly rush at the boss, you always get put down like you're a dog. A lot of people probably put this as the worst way to die in Elden Ring. I mean, even me, a guy who hardly ever rages, has almost broke a controller when I barely lost against a boss. But the worst way to die in Elden Ring is easily from not having enough quality Soulsborne content. So that's why you should leave a like on this video, and subscribe to Through the Fog right now. We post the best Soulsborne content on YouTube, and you won't want to miss a single video. And if you want to support us in a further capacity, feel free to drop a super thanks, and we'll shout you out at the end of the video. Every death we talked about before has a high chance of causing major mental distress, but going mad beats all of them from a mental perspective. Dying from madness is so brutal and insanely frustrating as a player. There's almost no way to avoid it. I mean, there's even a town where walking through it slowly makes you go mad. It isn't fun or rewarding to put a status effect in the game that literally makes you insta-die if you spend too much time exposed to it. A death from madness feels cheap and unfair, and it doesn't get any better when observing the hell your character goes through when dying to this. Who at FromSoft thought it was justified? I mean, if you use a madness spell, your character has stuff coming out of their eyes while shaking in agonizing pain. This isn't even going mad anymore. This is some other sadistic and weird thing FromSoft got going on. I said it before, and I'll say it again. Miyazaki a freak. But that isn't even the freakiest death Miyazaki put in. I need an explanation why these hands exist. And why do they chomp on you like you're a whole Krabby Patty? I legit have no idea how to explain what's going on here, but I feel like it belongs on this list. I don't know how this kills you, but it looks painful, and I know it's annoying as hell. I mean, considering the fact that we're talking about giant hand enemies, it should be obvious that this is a grab attack. There's definitely a pun to be made there, but it's too late at night for me to come up with one. But this death is just frustrating, especially because whenever they do literally anything, they lunge. So they literally jump from Lanedale to Limgrave just to fuel you up like a weird uncle. Like, I actually have no words for everything about this enemy. This is a terrible way to die. Keep these hands away from me. Alright, I'm gonna piss you off again. Poison Lake. I bet I've got steam coming out of your ears and nose now, because this has to be the most frustrating death in all of Elden Ring. There are loads of bodies of water you have to get through to progress that inflicts poison on you, and instead of being annoying in the sense that it outright kills you, it slowly drains your health down till you reach 0. The entire time you're spamming heals, praying that you can outlast the health loss. It sucks so much. It's literally the Elden Ring equivalent of rotten flesh in Minecraft. But the debuff from rotten flesh is one you take willingly, because you're desperate for food. But in Elden Ring, you get that punishment just for existing. Dying to poison is the worst thing ever. And it's so much worse because it happens so often. No joke, for people that aren't in the loop, Miyazaki has literally become known for poison swamps. Before Elden Ring came out, one of the main questions was whether there would be poison swamps or not. And to cope, the community developed this weird Stockholm syndrome. Tell me why the director of Night Rain was asked why there isn't poison swamps in the game. Don't give him ideas. Dying from poison is one of the worst ways to die in Elden Ring. Dear Soulsborne community, we're victims. Oh, it looks like you're getting too comfortable now. Let me traumatize you again, because there's no way you can survive getting put in the Abductor virgin's stomach. The main thing that makes his death so terrifying is the fact you have no idea what's going on in there. Your character could be brutally tortured, or they could be throwing him a tea party in there. But the reality is that we don't know, and fear of the unknown is significantly worse than if we knew they were committing atrocities to us in their stomachs. But why is the Abductor's attack so strange? I mean, in some instances you get absorbed and violently murdered, and the other times you get teleported to a random place in the map, like the inside of its stomach is the entrance to Narnia. And what makes all this worse is the fact that fighting the Abductor is a terrible ordeal. Half the time, I don't even know what this guy's doing. Most of the time, they're smacking into walls in hopes that they hit you. and they always do. The other times you're fighting them, they start whipping out the spin to win, where they scare you away by being annoying. So when this annoying boss absorbs you like Gorlock the Destroyer, it feels so bad, because you know you're gonna have to go back and fight that same migraine again, and you let it get the final laugh. You failed and experienced one of the worst deaths in Elden Ring. Astel holds our next worst way to die. I don't need to say much about Astel. When you haven't learned his moves, he's an absolute headache. And when you have, he's a super annoying roadblock that doesn't need to be there. So when he's spamming you with magic, cloning himself, and being a weird skeleton bead thing, that's annoying enough. But when this clown randomly starts grabbing you with his mandibles and starts casting hollow purple, you can't help but think, this surely is one of the worst deaths in Elden Ring. This is another one that's so dramatic. Like I was a corpse 10 minutes ago. You did not need to do all that, and we're going super abstract with this next one. But oh well. Getting shot down by one of these stupid giant archers is so easily one of the worst deaths in Elden Ring. You're out here living your best life, and you get violently shot at by these stupid giants. Yes, they are easy to dodge, but mistakes happen, and when they do, they're humiliating and get me mad enough to throw my controller. Half the time, these guys are shooting you from places you cannot get to easily. So they're sitting there camping, bullying you, and you can't do anything about it until you progress through the area enough to get to that stupid giant and murderize them. These guys did not need to do so much damage. You make one mistake, and you have a hole that's definitely not supposed to be there. A man can't live his life in the lands between without some roided up statue spinning the block on him. They're cheap and hard to deal with. So dying to these guys sucks so much. But what sucks even more is the Revenant. This enemy sucks to die against, because facing him is pure despair. He's able to attack so unnecessarily rapidly that it isn't even a fight. It's just him bullying you into a corner. I feel like I'm being shoved into a locker, but instead of by a jock, it's this weird deformed thing. This thing murdering you probably wouldn't suck as much if it had 2 arms instead of the whole armory. See what I did there? But Miyazaki had to pull out his inner freak again, because apparently 2 hands aren't enough to get the job done. That is literally the only reason I can think this abomination would have so many hands, because I definitely feel like I'm getting violated when I'm going up against this thing. Easily top 25 worst ways to die. You can hardly even defend against his attacks. Dying to this guy is a sad inevitability, because stamina doesn't exist for him, so he can attack you 70 times in a second while you're just trying to live. And now for the top 2 absolute worst ways to die in Elden Ring. The second worst way to die is getting killed by a passive enemy, like a deer or a crab. People actually get killed by these creatures, and damn is it embarrassing. For a lot of you guys, this might even be your first time learning these guys can attack, because it's that difficult to get killed by these things. I mean, the deer is minding his own business, roaming, and the crab is just crabbing. Imagine being the schmuck that wakes up and decides you're gonna fight a nearly defenseless animal and lose. That's like initiating combat with a random middle schooler and losing. And if you're like me, you never lose a fight against those dumb kids. So to anyone that needs to hear this, if you can't even handle fighting a deer, don't even play the game, little bro. Take out the disc and burn that thing, because you aren't ready for the lands between. And the absolute worst way to die in Elden Ring is getting killed by normal enemies. This is another one we can all relate to. You walk into a fortress of some kind, and before you know it, you get a bunch of ads crowded around you, melting your health bar. No one wants to admit they've died to normal enemies, but when they literally crowd around you and jump you, that's something everyone can admit to. The second they're crowded around you enough to where you can't move, you know it's over. And it sucks so much. It's this feeling of loss, knowing your run is over and you can't do a single thing to get out of this situation. All you can do is sit back and watch as some of the weakest enemies take like half a minute to eventually take your health bar low enough to kill you. And that's why I can say without a shadow of an Erdtree that it's the worst death in all of Elden Ring. A failure that reaches veterans and newbies alike. And that was the worst ways to die in Elden Ring. I hope you're still mentally well. And if we missed one, drop it in the comments. And while you're down there, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, click the video on the screen to see the worst and best enemy in every Soulsborne game. You'll love it. And before we close the video, I'd like to thank everyone that left a super chat. We'll have them all on screen, and if you want to get a shout out, go ahead and drop a super chat, and we'll always respond to your message. And until next time, I'll see you through the fog.